I'm Neng. Evan and I have been busily working on adding factuality signals into our leaderboard for the past few months. We are so excited to introduce that to you. First of all, Evan, could you introduce more about the factualities?
Yeah, so factuality is targeting exactly as it says. We're looking at model responses in our real world usage. We're parsing out where the models make claims that are verifiable, and then we're verifying them. And we're having that signal of whether or not the model is producing true or false claims incorporated into the leaderboard calculation itself. And right here, I have pulled open Text Arena, and on it, we can see we have current style control, and we can change to factuality, which changes up the rankings a little bit. Here we see some notable changes. In particular, OpenAI models go up when factuality is selected. Some open source models like Quen also go up, and some models also go down a large amount compared to with style control in particular. So this represents that those models, while being helpful to humans, are doing so in a way without compromising factuality, which is certainly possible.
What's the importance of factuality? Why does it matter?
I think if you want reliable AI to be used in real economically valuable tasks, or even on my day-to-day personal life to give me good advice that is true, you need factuality. That is core to reliability. At the same time, it might be harder and harder to ensure as a human that the responses I'm getting from my LLM are factual as I trust it to do more and more serious work. For example, if I'm not a lawyer and if I'm asking for law advice or like tax advice, am I going to be able to tell if the model is maybe subtly lying to me or misrepresenting a law to me? Probably not, because I'm not a lawyer. And so what we want to do is we want to offload that process, which is really difficult for humans, and kind of verify what we've built, go through and one by one, very carefully and very thoroughly check all these claims.
So what's the factuality's relationship with hallucinations?
Yeah, hallucinations are probably slightly broader than what we're measuring specifically. We look at web verifiable claims. So these are concrete things, facts about the world, if you will. Hallucinations could go a little bit beyond that. For example, I could hallucinate about a conversation. I could say, oh, you said something 5 turns ago and I did not. That would be a hallucination. We're not measuring those types of things. Or your coding agent could hallucinate that it wrote a test case, but it didn't. These are not what we cover. We're mainly covering information about the world, and is that information accurate or not? Think tax laws. Did you say the right tax law? Medical advice. Did you say this medicine is safe or not? Did you say this Python package supports this operating system or not? Those are the specific types of claims we're looking at when we construct this factuality signal.
We already have style control in the leaderboards. So how does it differ from the style control signals?
Style control and factuality are largely in spirit trying to do a similar thing, which is make it hard for a model to produce beautiful, well-formatted answers that are just filled with garbage and convince people to vote for that response, even though it is largely inaccurate. Style control tries to do this in a different way where it looks at the style components itself and tries to look at how that influences a human. Rather, with factuality, we aim to measure the problem directly. So we directly measure whether this model is producing factual content or not, whether it's producing information that is straight up not true. And we just directly look at this and put that into the leaderboard to make it essentially impossible for a model to score very high on our leaderboard while producing tons of inaccurate claims and formatting it really well, for example.
Makes sense. How do you see the factuality signals impact the frontier models in the following?
At its core, what it will prevent is any model from achieving a very high score while being excessively non-factual. So it'll be difficult, if not impossible, to create a model that has like the world's most beautiful formatting, super confident text, super sycophant, filled with factual errors everywhere. This model cannot be high on their leaderboard. Those types of models absolutely will not be given a high score because they'll be very heavily penalized by this factuality section. And largely, we have seen already models from frontier labs, in particular OpenAI, are very factual. It is clear from their factuality scores over time, over, say, the past year or 6 months of releases, that this has been a large focus, and their models have vastly improved on this metric very quickly.
Sounds great. Any other like interesting findings while you were working on this Factuality project for the models?
It's a good question. One interesting thing is where models are already most factual today. So you take away their access to search, which is somewhat non-standard, but let's just say the models don't have access to search. Which domain areas are they strongest? And we're seeing that somewhat intuitively mathematical is.
Yep.
This makes sense because mathematical is very grounded, very verifiable. I think that follows well. And the second is software, which also makes sense. This is also a huge focus. Where we see a decline is in legal and government.
Oh.
So there's a slight decline in factuality in that area, business and finance. And I would argue these are softer areas, perhaps more difficult to provide accurate claims, in particular legal. I mean, there's tons of legal codes out there. Some providers have produced models that have gotten more factual over time. In particular, OpenAI seem to have large leaps and bounds of factuality improvement between, for example, the O3 models from a while ago to the GPT-5 series. So those groups are much more factual than their predecessors. Some labs like XAI, we can see that their focus on factuality in recent editions has paid off. Admittedly, 4.3 is much higher on factuality than it is on human preference. Anthropic in itself, we've seen their focus on increased factuality for the Opus 4.8 series to actually have paid off as their most factual models since from what we can measure from even a few releases ago.
Yep.
Because this is clearly important. I'm not going to use AI for real things if I cannot trust its output fundamentally.
Thanks, Evan, for sharing all those interesting findings and insights along the way. And if you are also interested in the new Factuality Leaderboard, check it out.